Yeah, sorry for that. So, hello everyone, I'm Farhan. I'm from Bangladesh and I'm a senior software developer here. So, I mostly work with PHP and Node, and I also do a lot of open source. So, in today's session, I will walk you through the entire process of building a blazing fast search user interface using Typesense. It will be a really simple UI, but I hope that this will be enough to get the fundamental concepts of Typesense through. So I'll be sharing my screen now and I'll be turning off my camera. So, yeah, so can you guys see my screen? Uh,
Yep, we can see your
yeah.
screen.
All right then. Okay, so I have prepared a small slide here. It's really short. So it's about me. Again, I'm Farhan. I'm a senior software developer. I'm passionate about learning new stuff and writing about them on the internet. So I have recently started working with Aviyel, and in the past I have written articles for companies like Adeva, FreeCodeCamp, and Honey Badger. So two of my most popular articles that you may know or may not know is the Docker Handbook and Kubernetes Handbook. So I would like to begin today's session by stating what Typesense actually is. So according to their About Us or About page, Typesense is an open source typo-tolerance search engine that is optimized for instant sub 50 millisecond searches while providing an intuitive developer experience. So it's something on the like of Algolia or Elasticsearch, but completely free and open source. It's a lot easier to work with, and it can let you build functional search user interfaces in no time. So it not only improves the experience for you, your users, but also you as a developer. So when working with Typesense or building an app powered by Typesense, this is the abstract architecture here. Okay, so assuming that you want to build an online bookshop where people can come search for books and then buy them. So definitely you will have some sort of front end. It can be a React app, a Vue app, or maybe a Flutter application. So it will have a backend, the bookshop. This can be anything. This can be a Node.js API or maybe a Laravel API or anything that you fancy these days. And then there will be Typesense running as a separate entity on your server or another server. And it's sort of like the REST API you have here, but dedicatedly for searching data. So how it works is, of course, in your bookshop API database, you will have a list of books, title of books, publication year, the authors, and things like that. So what you will have to do, you will have to feed that set of data to Typesense. So Typesense will record everything about your books in a sort of NoSQL database. So in the Typesense database, there are collections and there are documents. So if you create a collection for your books, so each book will be a document inside that collection. So if you have worked with database systems like MongoDB before, this should be very easy to understand for you. But if you are from a relational database management system background, in that case, a collection is equivalent to a table and a document is equivalent to a row in those tables. Okay, so that's an overview of the architecture. It will become much clearer once we get to the programming part and actually build out an application. So going forward, so when you want to build an UI powered by Typesense, there are 4 distinct steps to build that. Of course, there will be more, but these 4 you have to take. So you will have to first set up Typesense either in your server or in another server. There are other options as well that I will demonstrate now. Then you will have to index your data. Indexing means feeding the data you want to search to Typesense. So in our example of a bookshop, we will have to index the entire catalog of our books into Typesense's databases. So Typesense knows what people may ask for. Okay. Then you will have to build an UI, a search UI. It can be a search bar, it can be a single page application, it can be anything you want. Okay. Finally, you will be able to search. So now I will take you to the live demo of how we can set up Typesense and build out our little search UI. Okay. So I already have a project set up for today's webinar. So this link is already in my article on Aviyel on the same topic. So you can just go ahead and find this repository. Once you're in the repository, inside the webinar branch, you can find the code I'll be showing today. Okay. Okay, so let's begin. Throughout the entire session, I will heavily use the Typesense documentation because at the end of the day, that's all you have got. When you are working alone, you will have to come back to this documentation very frequently. So I wanted to show you how I use this documentation. Okay, so the first step is to install Typesense. So there are multiple ways of installing Typesense. It's written in C++ and it comes as a compiled binary. So either you can download that binary and run that as a service on your Linux or Mac or whatever your machine runs on, or you can use Docker to use the official Typesense image and spin up a Typesense server. So in today's demo, we'll obviously use the Docker route because I don't know what platform you are on, and Docker kind of unifies all the platforms. Okay. So first, make sure you have Docker installed and running on your system. Then, okay, I'm using WSL on Windows 11 here. So the first step is to pulling the Typesense image. So I'll just shamelessly copy this line from here and put it on my terminal. So if you are familiar with Docker, you may know that this step is actually optional. If you do not pull the Typesense image and try to spin up a container anyway, Docker will automatically pull the image from Docker Hub. Okay, so I'll do this anyway. So I actually have the image pulled on my system already, so it should be pretty quick. But depending on your internet speed, it may take some time. Okay, so the version is 0.21.0. Now that we have the image pulled to our local system, we are ready to spin up a server. So we'll navigate to start here, and here is the entire command to start Typesense. Okay, so I will just type in the command and I will explain what each of the part does in this command. Okay, so first we will start with docker container run, and I actually have the command written already here. Okay, so I'll just look at that. Okay, so docker container run, then we will have to publish a port. Don't worry, I will explain why we are doing this. 818.08 to 818. So what happens is that Typesense runs as a service inside the container on port 8108. So if you want to talk to Typesense, you will have to talk to port 8108. So the publish option to docker container run command actually maps 8108 from inside the container to 8108 on my local machine, making the server accessible from outside the container. Otherwise, containers are completely isolated environments in Docker. So next, I will add the detach option. If I don't add the detach option, what I will have to do is I will have to keep my terminal running here, and it's a bit cumbersome. So running it in detached mode lets me run the container in the background. Next, I will have to declare a volume. So I have already said that Typesense stores its data in a NoSQL kind of document-based format. So what it does is it actually persists the data within a directory inside the container. Now the problem is that containers are ephemeral in nature. They can die anytime, any moment, and they can be lost. So if that ever happens, we will lose all our index data as well. So a good thing to do is map the data from inside the container to a outside directory, or maybe a separate volume as well. Now all these jargons that I'm saying, volumes and mapping data, it's all related to Docker. So if you are uh, if it seems unfamiliar to you, don't worry at all. You can just go ahead and learn Docker and you will be familiar with all of this. So I will declare a volume here. I already have created a folder on my local machine. So home Chowdhury, which is my nickname, then Typesense and data. And I will map this host directory to data inside the container. So this part here will instruct Docker to find anything that's inside this folder from the container and put it inside this directory, home Chowdhury Typesense data. Okay, finally I will have to declare the data directory for the container. That's data dir slash data. Now if you want to store the data in some other directory, maybe called I don't know, Typesense data, then you will also have to update this part here, because this is what you are calling the data directory inside the container, so you have to update it here. So one thing that you may do is you can put this data dir first and this later. Okay, I missed something. I missed the image part here, so I have to add the image. Okay, so this is the name of the image that we pulled a few moments ago. And finally, the last piece of data we need is an API key. Now, the API key is like a password to your server. Whenever you want to talk to the Typesense server for searching data, you will have to provide this API key. Otherwise, the Typesense server will not accept your request at all. So that's pretty much it. You can just copy the command from the README in this repository here. I'll share the links in the chats a moment later. Okay, so I'm hitting enter. So seems like my container is now running. So let's check it out if it's running or not. So I will use another Docker command, Docker container ls, and it's not running at all. Yeah, it exited a few seconds ago. Maybe I did something wrong. So I'll just copy this from here and try it. Yeah, now it's running. Maybe I made some typo somewhere, but it's fine. You can always copy. Now, to make sure that the server is ready for request, we have to make a health check. So I'm going back to Typesense documentation here, and from the left, I will navigate to health check. So as you can see, if I make a request to /health, Typesense will actually let me know if it's healthy or not. Okay, so I will use Postman for that. So I've already prepared a collection here, and you can find this collection in my repository as well. So the host here is actually localhost 8108, on which our Typesense server is running. You have already seen that I have published 8108 from inside the container to my local host. So this is where I can talk to Typesense. Okay, so I'll make a GET request to /health and check if it's working fine or not. yeah, it says okay true, which means that Typesense is actually running and just ready to answer our queries. Okay. Now the next step is indexing data. Now, depending on your project, there are multiple ways to index data. You can either use one of the client libraries, or you can actually index the data from server side. It really depends on what you are building and how your application is running. As an example, let's say you are working on a brand new project and you want to use Typesense in there. So what you can do is on your server side, when you are creating a new book data, you can index that to Typesense immediately. Or in cases where you are trying to integrate Typesense to an old project, in that case, you will have to take the entire data set from your existing server and feed it to Typesense. Okay, so I will show you how you can do that using the client library, but there are multiple ways of doing that, and I may write articles on those in the future. Okay, so let's come to the client part now. So what is a client in the context of Typesense? Well, I have already shown you that you can use something like Postman or any HTTP library such as Axios to talk to Typesense. But it can be a little bit cumbersome in places where you are really fine-tuning your search, and there are a lot of uh, request parameters. For example, if I go to the weighted search example here, as you can see, there are a lot of query parameters, and it can be a bit cumbersome to maintain sometimes. So what these client libraries do is that they do the heavy lifting of sending the request to Typesense, and they let you write JavaScript code or PHP code that will in turn be turned into a request and sent off to Typesense. I'll just demonstrate how that works. So in this demonstration, I will use the JavaScript library. Let's see how we can install that. So yeah, the documentation is really good here again. So you can just use npm install save Typesense. This will install the Typesense client library, and then you can install Babel runtime, which is a peer dependency for the Typesense client library. Now in my project here, I have already installed Typesense, as you can see here, Typesense, and I have also installed Babel runtime. So I will not reinstall them. And the project here, this is a simple Vue.js project with a simple card component. I will demonstrate all of this later. Let's focus on the data indexing part right now. So here is Typesense and here is Babel runtime. And if you are working on a brand new project, you will have to install them manually from by using these commands from the documentation. Now going forward, inside the data directory, I have a books.jsonl file. Well, this is a data set from Typesense themselves. If I go to the documentation and I go to the walkthroughs part inside building a search application, you can download the sample data set from here. To follow along, download this small data set that we have put together for this walkthrough. So I will use that data set for my demonstration as well. So what we are getting inside this books.jsonl file is information about almost 10,000 books. It's actually 9979, so almost 10,000 books. And each line in this book, in this file, represents a book. Okay, so the first one, as you can see, represents the Hunger Games. Then you can see the array where for the authors, Suzanne Collins. Then there is the published year, there is an ID, average rating, and all of those things. Okay, so this is our data set. Now, in a real life scenario, you won't have a JSON file like this. Rather, you will have some sort of database, maybe MySQL, Oracle, MongoDB, something like that. So you will have to actually program a script to aggregate all the data from your current database and feed it to Typesense. So I will show you an example of such an indexer script right now that we will work with this JSON file. Okay. So yeah, I'm opening indexer.js. Am I going a little fast or is it all right? Just please let me know. Okay, I'm taking that as a green signal. So this is the file I have here for indexing the data, and actually it's a slightly modified version of the script you can find on the documentation. Okay, so yeah, this one that starts from here and goes all the way through until here. So I have slightly modified this script to make it work properly. Okay, so first let's focus on the Typesense client library. Okay, so what we are doing is we are requiring the Typesense library that we installed a few moments ago, this one. Then we are creating a new client, and we are doing that by using the new operator in JavaScript on the Typesense.client class. So this is a class in the Typesense client library that represents a typical Typesense client. Okay, so there are a lot of clients going on here. Now for newing up a new client, you will have to provide some information. So first one is the list of nodes. I will explain what this is, no worries. And then the API key, and finally the connection timeout seconds. Okay, so let's begin from the list of nodes. So Typesense is actually an highly available service. Okay, so you can have multiple instances of Typesense servers if you need in a high traffic website. Let's say you have let's say you are working for the largest news site for your country, so people will come in every day and do a lot of searches. So in those cases, you may need to spin multiple instances of a Typesense server. So if so you can balance the load between them properly. Okay, so it can be a little hard to understand if you have never worked with high availability and things like that, but no worries, you can just work with a single node here. So a node is a Typesense server, and a node must have a host, a port, and a protocol. So in our case, the host is localhost. But if in a real life scenario, if you're making a bookshop, it can be something like search.book.shop. Okay, so in a real life scenario, you may use something like this instead of localhost. Then there's the port 8108. So my server is running on 8108. So I'll just use that here. Finally, the protocol. It can be either HTTP or it can be HTTPS. I'm on my local system again, so it will be HTTP for me. Okay, so once you have finished defining the nodes in the array, you can go ahead and type in your API key. So in a real life scenario, you will have to load this API key from an .env file or maybe some other secure way. You should never put your API keys and things like that within the source code. It's a very bad practice, and it can cause a lot of issues. Finally, there is a connection timeout in seconds, which is 2 seconds. So Typesense will keep a connection open for 2 seconds, and if it doesn't respond within that time frame, it will just close that. If you want to configure a multi-node Typesense client here, you can just go ahead and read the high availability part in how to section. Okay, yeah, here. So they have really good documentation. You can just follow along and configure your client like this. So now we have only one node, but you can have multiple within this array. Okay, so yeah, that's it for the client. So now we have a client and we can use this client object to talk to our Typesense server. The next concept that you have to understand is the concept of a schema. So schema within the context of Typesense is it's sort of the shape of your individual data. So if Typesense knows about your books, it also has to know what data your books have. So each of our books have a title, they have authors, they have an image, they have publication year, ratings count, and average rating, all of this. So we will have to actually create an schema here. This is the name of the schema, then these are the fields. So within this array you can define as many fields as you want. Okay, so each field in this array must have a name. So our first field is named title and it's of type string. The next one is named authors and it's of also type string but an array of string. Okay, and ignore faceting for now. I will explain faceting in detail later on in this session, so ignore facet true for now. Okay, so each of our fields must have a name and a type. Now if I go to their API reference in the collection part, you can see what is required. So each of your books must have a name and a fields. That's what we have done. We have defined a name here and fields here, and inside the fields array you can have multiple types of data and there is a list of them. So you can have a string, you can have integers, float, booleans, and geopoints. You can also have arrays of these data types except of geopoint. Now you can also use auto if you're not sure about the type of the data you are getting, but that's another scenario. If you would like to learn about that, I would suggest go ahead and read the documentation on that topic. Okay, so okay, going forward, now that we have a schema, oh, and the default sorting field in the let's Typesense know that Typesense should sort the data by default using the ratings count. So if a book has more ratings, it will be ranked higher on the search result, and if a book has less ratings, then it will be ranked lower on the search results. So yeah, that schema, it will become much more clearer once we start to index the data. Okay, then finally we are ready to index the data. Now that we have a schema, you must have this schema thing. Okay, so yeah, there are multiple methods within this client object. So there is a method called collections and then create. So what this line is doing is it will create a collection within the Typesense server database called books, following the books schema. Okay, so I have already explained what collections are and what documents are. So this is us creating that collection, sort of the database for all our books inside Typesense. Okay, so this is an asynchronous function. It returns a promise, so we can chain then call after that. So once this script has created a collection, we are ready to insert our data. So inside the callback for the then function, we will use something called readline. Now readline is one of the built-in modules of Node.js. If you are experienced in Node.js, you may have already worked with readline. What it lets you do is it provides you an interface for reading data from a readable stream. I don't know how to explain that better, but streams are already a little complicated thing, but I'll try my best. So we are creating an interface here for reading data, and this create interface method takes an input and an output. Okay, so as an input, we are using the books.jsonl file, and in Node.js, to read or write from or to a file, you must use the FS or file system module. It's another built-in module within Node.js, and you can just read about it on the Node.js documentation. Okay, so you are turning terminal false so that readline doesn't treat it as an TTY. Again, it's a little complicated to explain, but that's not important here. Okay, so after we have created an interface, we will call on, and within this on call we will have another callback function. Okay, so within this callback function we will have each line from this books.jsonl file. So what will happen, readline will open this index books.jsonl file, read each line from that file and put it inside the line variable or parameter. Okay, then we can use json.parse to parse the book data from this line and put it inside the book document. So now that we have a parsed JSON information in our hand, we can actually hand it over to Typesense. So the client.collections method, as you can see here, can also take a parameter called the collection name. So by saying client.collections and passing books as a parameter, we are saying the client to use this collection for the upcoming operations. Okay. So then we are going inside documents and we are creating a new document using this JSON object, sort of JSON string sort of, and then we are just printing out the book document.title. Now I understand that this entire file may seem a little bit complicated to you because that's what it is. But in a real life scenario, you won't have to read from files like this. You will have your data ready from a data store and you can just loop over them, turn them into JSON, and then send them off to Typesense. Okay. So now we will execute this script and see what happens. So I'll go into my repositories directory. I have Aviyel cd data. Yeah. So now we can go just node data indexer.js. So we are just executing the file. Enter, and there is an error. But there is. Oh, yeah. Okay, seems like the data already exists in my data directory. Oh, yeah. Yes. Okay, just give me a moment and I'll clear the data from my database. Yes. That should be wrong, but let's just leave that now. Okay, yeah. Now there should be no data at all in my server. Sorry for that. I was testing out things last night. Okay, let's try executing our script once again. Yeah, it works now. So as you can see, the script is sending off each of the book to our Typesense database or Typesense server, and it's being persisted within the Typesense database. So there is a lot of books, almost 10,000. Yeah, now our server is ready to answer our queries. I believe this is a good point to take a small break and answer some questions if I get any. It's okay. Polls. So if you have any questions at all, just put it in the Q&A section. Is it possible to link Typesense with my HyperDB database? Maybe it's possible, Charu. You can just uh, go to the Typesense documentation, and there are how-tos for a lot of databases. Although they do not have HyperDB here, but I believe it can be done. It can be done because if you have server-side applications such as Node.js in between, then you can obviously map the data from HyperDB to Typesense. I guess there are better ways to do it. I'll just do my research and let you know once I have some information in my hand. Is it possible to delete an individual document from a Typesense collection in Typesense? Yeah. That's absolutely possible. In fact, if you go to the API references and go inside documents, you can find delete documents. Okay, so I'll just go there. I'll go to JavaScript. Yeah, so you can just call client collections documents, give it the ID of the documents, and then call delete, and it will just get rid of the data completely. Okay, you can also delete by query here. You can just filter by maybe you want to delete all the books of J.K. Rowling. Maybe you don't like her writing, then you can do that as well. You can filter by name of the author, and you can delete all of those in one go, and it will return the number of deleted documents. Okay, so yeah, that's two questions answered, and if I get any more, I will be happy to answer. And I'll just take 1 minute to drink some water. Okay, so I'm going back to my demo now. I think we are already 30 minutes into the session, and now I will start showing you how the searches work. So first, I will demonstrate how you can use a HTTP client like Postman or Insomnia or libraries like Axios to communicate with the Typesense server, and then I will show you how you can use the client library to do the same sort of things from client-side application. Okay, so let's begin with the Postman thing here. So in order to perform a search, you will have to send a request to the Typesense host. So in my case, the host is actually localhost 8108, and I have saved it as a variable within my collection for ease of use. So within my search query, I will have my host localhost 8108 slash collections slash books. Books is the name of the collection, slash documents, then slash search. And after this entire URL, then I can pass my query parameters, which will be used for the search actually. So there are some required parameters, not some, two actually. So for a search to work, you will have to pass the q parameter here. Q is what the user is inputting here. So if the user inputs something like I don't know, the alchemist, then it will be q. Okay, or the query. You can just put a plus in here if you want to make that safe. So this is what q stands for, the query. And if you want all the documents within the collection, you can just use a star here. There is also another way of listing all the documents that I would like to show you. I guess it's here somewhere. It should be here somewhere. Yeah, retrieve a document. Yeah, so if you make this call without passing any ID, it will also return all the documents, but that will not be a search, that will be a retrieval. So if you use the retrieve function, it will be like a CRUD operation, so it will be a read. But a search is a different thing. I'll show you now. So let's search for everything on our database, and I will query by title. Now the query by, this indicates what against which field the query should be matched. Okay, so let's say we want our user to search for the titles of the books, using the titles of the books. Okay, so when some user comes and types in the Hunger Games, Typesense will take that query and try to match it against one of the titles. Okay, one of the titles, and any matches that it finds, it will send back to you. So that's what query by is. Now keep in mind, you can use any field here, not just title, as long as that's a string or array of a string. So if I go back to my schema and I take a look here, title is a string, so I can search by title, I can search by authors, I can also search by image URL if I want to for some reason, but I cannot search by the integers or the floats. However, they have their own use cases that I'll demonstrate soon. So we can only search using the string fields. Okay, so I will just use title by default, but I will also demonstrate authors as well. All right, let's go ahead and make a search here. So I will search for Harry Potter, and let's send it off. Yeah, so this is my search results. Okay, so Typesense has found 48 results for Harry Potter, and I hope you guys can see this clearly. It's a long response here, but I will try my best to explain it by collapsing each of them. Just give me a moment. Let me collapse them. Let's highlights and let's switch. And then out of page and request params. Okay, so this is what a typical response from the Typesense server looks like. So ignore the facet counts for now. I will get back to it later. So found 48 means that Typesense has found 48 results for Harry Potter. Okay, so the hits array actually contains the books or the documents it has found for Harry Potter. I will get into it a bit later. Then there is out of, so there are total 9,979 books in our database, and it has found 48 out of that. There is page one. Well, the response from Typesense can be actually paginated. Okay, so we are on page one right now, and by default, Typesense returns 10 results within a page. We can change that, and we will change that a few moments later. Typesense also sends back the request params that you have sent off to it. There's certainly usage for that. And also how long it took to do the search. 3 milliseconds. That's blazing fast, to be honest. Now let's get into the hits array. This is the interesting thing. So we have an array of objects. As you can see, this is an object, this is another object, and then another object. So each of these object is a hit or a book that Typesense has found on the server. So here is the list of authors for the first book. There is the author's facet. Again, just ignore faceting for now. There is the average rating. There is an ID, image URL, publication year, and all those other information. There is also a title. Now here is highlights. Okay, so highlights is a snippet of HTML code that shows you all the places where Typesense could match on one of the words that you have sent off. So in our query string, we have sent Harry and Potter. So Typesense is saying that, hey, I tried to match the tokens Harry and Potter against the title field, and this is the matches I have found. So you can actually show this on your user interface to kind of give some context to the users. A good example can be if I go to dev.to right now. I create a post and I go to add, I type TypeScript. So you can just do something like that. So you can do a line here that shows all the matches. Okay. So yeah, that's what highlights are for. And then there is text match. Well, I'm not sure what this is. Maybe the number of texts that the Typesense could match. I'm not sure about this one particularly. I haven't used that. So yeah, that's what a typical response from Typesense looks like. Now, by default, I hope that you remember that Typesense will sort the fields, sort the records according to the ratings count. But if we want to override that, let's say we want to sort by the average rating and in descending order. Okay, so the books that are rated higher will come higher on the list. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, another search here. So as you can see, the first book is rated 4.74. Next one is 4.73, 4.66. You get the idea. Next is per page. So I have said that by default, Typesense returns only 10 results per page, but we can override that using the per page parameter. It can be anything 5, 15, 25, whatever you want. So let's try 25. Now we'll get a lot of books here, 25. Okay, so that's it. You can also query by other fields. So instead of title, I can put authors here. And instead of Harry Potter, I will just put Rowling here. Then, so yeah, I'll get all the books that were authored by J.K. Rowling, and I'll also get the Cuckoo's Calling, which is a very good detective novel by the woman. Everyone should read that. I don't know, it will be there somewhere. So you get the idea, right? So that you can query by any string fields on your schema. Okay. Apart from regular searches, there is also weighted search. So what this is, let's say I would like to search not only by title but also by authors. Okay. So it's really useful in cases where you have like a blog site. So you want to let the user type in Python and you will return search results with Python in the title as well as in the excerpt maybe. Okay, so in that scenario what you can do is you can go query by title and you can put excerpt here, excerpt. So what Typesense will do, Typesense will not only look into the title but also in the excerpt. Then you can adjust the weights or the priority. So I will say Typesense that the weight of excerpt is 2 and title is 1. So Typesense should kind of prioritize excerpt over title. So that's how weighting works. So if you have multiple fields here, you should use weighting. Now, two fields can have the same weight. Okay, so they can have the same priority, 1, 1, and then maybe if I type in image URL here, that can be given 2. That can be done. So this is nothing you should be memorizing because it's all available on the Typesense URL. I will just leave the links. If you go to documents and if you go to search and scroll down, you can actually get a list of all the possible arguments that you can send to Typesense here. So I am just demonstrating some of the most common ones, but there are a lot that you can do using Typesense. Okay, so that's weighted search. Let's look for Harry Rowling. So yeah, I'm getting results of all the books written by J.K. Rowling and also the Harry Potter books. Yeah, Harry Potter boxed set. Okay, that's how it works. Okay, then there are the filtered search. So it works a lot like the regular searching, but you can filter the results using other parameters as well. As an example, I would like to find all the Harry Potter books, that are rated more than 4. So if a book is rated higher than 4, it will be listed on the results. So I just send it off, and you can see that only Harry Potter books that have rating higher than 4 will be listed here. So you can use filtering to get some pretty amazing results. As an example, if for some reason I don't like J.K. Rowling at all, I can just exclude her from my search. I can say filter by where author, then there is a colon here, and then not equals to J.K. Rowling. So where author is not equals to J.K. Rowling. Send. Could not find a filter field named author. Oh, sorry. It has to be authors. So that's an array. Sorry for that. Yeah. So I'll get no J.K. Rowling books at all. Okay, I will get other authors only. You can also combine multiple filters together. So you can say that I don't want books from J.K. Rowling. Also, only want books that are rated higher than 4. That will work as well. So you can get some pretty amazing results by tuning your searches. Okay. So that's it. Then finally, there is grouped search. So what this lets you do is it lets you group the search results using another field. So if I group my search results using authors, as you can see, inside the documents, I will get first authors Bill Watterson, then I will get the book Complete Calvin and Hobbes. If an author has multiple books, I should get that as well. Yeah, here is the group. Here is the group. Let's just collapse this one and then this one. So for some reason it's not. Yeah, here is the group. Here's the group key: J.K. Rowling and Mary Granpy and all of their books. Okay, so this is an entire group of results. Okay, that's how grouping works, and you can use that as well in your searches. Finally, there is faceted search. I will come back to it later. After I have shown you my JavaScript application that I have put together. So again, you can just go to my repository, clone this, and this is a Vue application. Here are all the instructions to start that, and you can use that to test out your Typesense skills. Okay, so I already have all my dependencies installed using npm install, so I can go ahead and npm run serve. I hope it doesn't die. It doesn't take this long. Oh yeah, it's been built. Maybe npm was just checking for updates. So yeah, this is my simple search UI. You can type in your search queries here. You can change the query by field. By default, it's title and authors. You can change the sort by fields: year descending, year ascending, average rating descending, and average rating ascending. And then you can change the items per page. Right now it shows found nothing because I have cleared out my search method here. Right now it's not performing any search at all. So let me just give you a quick run through of this entire application and how it's working. So I have an input here. This is my search box, and it's bound to the query data here. So whatever I write inside this will be inside my query. Okay, so if you have worked with Vue or React, you should be familiar with this. Okay, so if I write Harry Potter, as you can see, it updates the query variable in real time. So that's what it does. Now the title, the query by, sort by, and items per page is also bound to query by and sort by and per page. So by default per page is 10, but if I change it to 20, it will be updated in real time. That's what reactivity looks like. Then if I change it title to authors, from title to authors, the query by will change, and same for the sort by. If I give it year descending, it will become publication year descending. Okay, so that's how this input part is working. I hope this is understandable. If you are from a React background, I believe there are similar things that you can do, like the key up event and the change event. So I have only worked with Vue, so that's what I've got here. So finally, there is a card component used for listing my books. I will show it to you now. Okay, so let's just write the code for our search function here. Okay, it's just, I guess, 5 lines of code, enough for your searching to work. Okay, so first we'll take a constant called search params. It will be an object. So these search params will contain all the information we are sending as query parameter here. Okay, so we will just put it inside this search params thing. So the first thing I hope you remember is q, and q will be whatever the user types as the query. So I will give it this dot query. But just in case, if the user hasn't typed anything, then I will default it to a star. Okay, so if JavaScript sees that the query is empty, it will just put a star there. Okay, so the next one is query by. I will just copy and paste them. This dot query by. And if for some reason it's not selected here, I will just default it to title. Now I am defaulting these two fields only because they are required by Typesense. Otherwise, Typesense will be angry at us. Then I have sort by, and it's this dot sort by. I will leave it as it is, and then per page, this dot per page. Okay, so that's our search parameter, and then I have the Typesense client already defined in a typesense.js file, and I have also exported it already. So I can just import it here, import client from Typesense. And just like you did in the indexer file, you can use this client to perform your searches. So I will just type yeah, it's already an async function, so I will just call await client dot collections, and I will give it the name of the collections, books. Then I will call documents. Finally, search. So the search function here takes either regex string, or I'll just pass the search params here. So search params. Yeah. Now I will save these search results in a constant search results. Okay, and let's see how it looks. Console.log search. Thank you. So let's see if it works, or I have made some typo. So as you can see in the console, we have the search results, the same stuff that we were getting in here, the same stuff actually, just in the form of a JavaScript object. So the most important or the most interesting part in this entire object is the hits array, because this contains all the documents that Typesense has found. Now you may ask that I haven't typed anything at all, so Typesense should have returned all the 10,000 book to me. But I have already said that Typesense only returns 10 results per page by default. So I can change it to 25, and suddenly I will be getting a lot more books. See, array 25 and array 10. Array 10. So that's how it works. So now all I have to do is update the books array here with the hits I have got from Typesense. Okay. So if I do things like this dot, let's leave the console there. This dot books equals to search results dot hits, and voila, we are getting our pretty search results. So now I can type here Harry Potter and I can see my results instantaneously. I can sort them by I don't know, average rating descending. So yeah, I should have outputted the ratings here, and maybe I just forgot. Sorry for that. So I'll just use here descending. So 2016, 15, 15, 14, 14, 12, and things like that. So I can also search by authors. So I will just say Rowling again. Her name is easy to spell. So yeah, I'll get all the books from J.K. Rowling. I can increase to 25 and I will get more books here. Okay. So you can come up with all sorts of interesting search results, search user interfaces by simply using the client libraries provided by Typesense. So I hope that you can see how easy it is to make a functional search UI using Typesense. Maybe you can just do it within 10 minutes, okay, if you know Typesense well. So that leaves us with only the concept of faceted search. I will again check for any questions. If I get any, no, there are no questions. You can just ask any question here, okay? And I will answer. I will answer them. I will be happy to answer them. So there are some polls, and yeah. Thanks, Aviyel, for sharing my link. I will also share the link to the API references. Maybe this might come in handy. So, just the API references links and the docs or the guide. That's
Thank you, Farhan, for taking us through this
Acha.
search UI journey. Thank you so much. You guys can check out the link to the article in the chat box and maybe just go through it once. And I guess Farhan would be available on Twitter or Dev2, where if you have any issue with building a search UI with Typesense, you can, I guess, contact him anytime.
Yeah, anytime I'd be happy to answer your questions.
Yeah, yeah. And thanks, Farhan. Thank you, everyone who has been with us in the session today. Have a good day.
So yeah, what just happened? Charu, are you there?
Yeah. I think Avia just dropped off, but yeah, today, I think we're coming to the end of the session. Special thanks to
Yeah.
Farhan. Um, yeah, looking forward to hosting all of you again for our events coming up later this month. Yeah, I guess.
So I would just like to add a few
Sure.
words in there. I I think I didn't get enough time to explain the faceted search thing. That's a bit complicated. So I would suggest that you read about it on the documentation. And if you ever get stuck on anything at all, just ping me on Twitter or any platform that fancies you. I'll be always available to anyone who needs help, and I'll always be ready to answer your questions. Thank you.
All right. Yeah. I guess we can end the meeting in that case.